Alright, so I am back and I have placed my drips where I think I want them, and I'm going to remove all the effects from this layer. So I'm going to right click on this group and I'm going to clear the layer style, and it really doesn't matter that's all the drips are white and the color of the font is green, because when we apply our effects on top, we're going to do a complete overlay. If we're worried about how this multiplies, then that might be a problem, because then it wouldn't be on normal as the blend mode, but we're not going to have that issue. So I'm going to delete the source image because we want to keep our file as small as possible. Right, that is our smart object. If you want to be safe and you're scared to hit this X, just go ahead and hit Control S. It will save it. Then it won't ask you to save it when you hit the X. And then this was our original file. We don't need that anymore. And here we go. So it looks a little weird because the drips, you can't see them, they're white. But as soon as I do, I think we are going to end up doing a gradient overlay here. So let's go ahead and set that up. Gradient overlay. And now I have more than two colors. Basically, I have, well, we can call this a 3-color gradient, or we could actually reflect the 2-color gradient. So let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to select our gradient, come down, so that we can create a new swatch for that. So we'll select the cream color for the lighter cream color. Then we'll come down here and select the more brown color. If it's not showing up, choose a different place where you see that. And right now we just have the 2-part gradient. But if I want to select this first one, if I select anywhere else on here and create a new color stop, it will copy the color stop I just touched. So if I want it to fade from light to dark to light, bam, I can click again and I have another light color stop. Then that way I can pull my mid color until I feel like it's where I want it to be. And again, you can play with the closeness that you put your color stops. To make it more crisp and not necessarily have that soft gradient. You can draw these closer. Now you also have the option to move this diamond here, and as you can see, that dictates how close it cuts to the adjacent color as well. Okay, so I'm going to say that I'm happy with that, at least for right now. And I'm going to save this as a new swatch. I'll say OK here. And I'm thinking that maybe my font should be just a little bit thicker. Now let me tell you where it comes in handy now. So let's just say OK here. So my misdemeanor smart object, I'm going to go back into that and add an outline around it intentionally so that it makes it a little bit thicker and bolder, and all of my effects on this file will apply to that thicker smart object. So let's double click on her. For this group, we're going to do a stroke, and for how we're using this, it doesn't matter what color the stroke is, it's going to apply all the way around, but you do not want the stroke to be that thick. You just want it to bold this font just a little bit more. So right now I have 3 pixels. That's my size for the stroke. It will vary based on what your artboard and your pixels per inch are. I'm going to close out, tell it yes, I want to save. And now it has thickened that up quite a little bit. And I can go back, double click on it, and change the stroke to be, change my stroke to be 2 pixels. And and that way it beefs it up just a little bit less. And I think I'm happy with that. Now from here, looks like we need to add like a little bit of a highlight of a stroke around it. So let's do our effects and let's add a stroke. And then this time, instead of a black, let's just use a pure white. Say OK. And I'm going to bring that in and thin it out a little bit. Now I might even want this stroke to be on the inside instead of the outside. Or maybe the center. Yeah, choose the center for that one. And you can actually do both. Let's say you wanted a stroke on the inside and the outside, just so that you had a little freedom to play with each one. I can hit that plus sign and now I have a new stroke layer. You can keep adding strokes if you want to. So the top one I'm going to make my inside stroke, and I'm going to make that a 1. And then the bottom one I can make an outside stroke, and I might make that one a 2. That way it's not technically a center stroke. It has a little variability there. So it's going to be a little bit on the inside but more on the outside. And again, I don't have to choose a color for the stroke. I can choose a gradient instead. And then I can choose one of the gradients that I saved. But right now we're just going to leave it a white color though. Say OK. Bring our misdemeanor down. And for our Missy middle glow, I'm going to turn the visibility off for that one, and then for our outer glow, I'm going to turn the visibility off for that one too, so we can see what we're working with. And here, if you want to do the cloud, you can literally go online, grab your cloud, and do the same effects over it, as long as it was a PNG, preferably a vector or SVG. You can work from that. So let's see if we can find one. I might have a brush, but what I want to do is show you, if you don't have brushes, then you can. Yeah, I have some clouds in here, but let me show you. If you didn't have brushes, of course you do your search on Google, and we're going to look for airbrush spray vector. And as a matter of fact, let's just look for a spray paint vector. And see if there's anything that we like. You got some cloudy ones here with drips. We're looking for free stuff too. Huh, that would be a good thing to type in. I think Vecteezy is free. Free Pick has free ones. So let's see what we find there. Vecteezy. They have a lot more pro ones than they had before. And I'm trying to use one that doesn't have such long drips, because we won't have space for the drips to come down that far. This is always the case. The ones that I prefer are the ones that are on the Pro. But you can sign up for Pro and spend some money and be able to download some of the other ones. I just tend to figure out if I can work with whatever I can work with in order to not pay for it. And I really don't want one of the, cartoony, goofy looking ones. Oh, but you know what? This one had some drips with it. Hold on. Where'd it go? This one's free and it's got drips. So if you didn't have the drip brushes, here you go. Don't know what the name of this file is. Spray paint drip vector design set for your any business. Let me copy that and I'll put that as a reminder. Let's do a new text layer. And I'll save that link just in case anybody wants that. All right, going back, you are supposed to give the artist credit whenever you use this, although it is a free file. And that's what popped up telling me that I was supposed to give the artist credit. So let me see if I can shout them out and post that on the image as well. So let's go ahead and save this spray paint drips. It's going to save as a compressed file. When it's done downloading, I'm going to show it in folder, right click, extract it, and there we go. So this would require you to have Illustrator, because this file actually saved as an AI. You should also be able to open your vectors up in, I don't know how you do it in your Silhouette programs and some of the other programs, but I'm sure there are videos you can look up to figure out how to open vectors or SVGs in those programs as well. Illustrator is the sister program to Photoshop, so it's the vector side, and then Photoshop is the bitmap in the photo side. So while that's loading up, I'm going to go ahead and close out these windows. Figure out our next step. Alright, so here are the vector sprays. Now the good thing about Photoshop and Illustrator being related is that I can pull something from Illustrator, and if I want to keep it, maintain it as a vector. So let's say I'm going to choose this one. I can Control C to copy it. When I come over here to my Photoshop layer, I can Control V to paste it. I can paste it as a smart object. So that means that at any point in time I can double click on this and I can modify it in its original vector format. Now I am stretching this just to see how big I can get it on here without losing a lot of these little small pieces. However, I might have to just get rid of some of those because I want the bulk of this image here. So now I'm going to double click on my vector smart object, and I'm going to get rid of some of these little, I guess, pieces that are hanging off this edge here, because what I don't want is to print and my paper and my image cut off straight lines here, and then you'll see them in the dots, and it looks very obvious. It doesn't look so obvious now, but when you print it on a shirt, it will definitely look obvious. So I'm going to double click on my vector. Alright, and I know that these pixels over here are the ones that I want to get rid of. And I'm just going into the shape, going to isolation mode. So basically what I did was double click on the image, and now I'm inside of it or in isolation mode. And I don't want to just take off complete squares. I'm trying to do these little steps of stairs because I don't want to see a crude line of this little shrapnel type look. And I would have preferred it to have the cleaner, puffy look, but this is what we found, so this is what we're rocking with. I think that's good enough. And then if I wanted to, if I double clicked on this one and I just really didn't want these strips to be that long, I could actually go with my direct select tool. I can select the nodes just for that drip and I can move them. So I can make this a little bit shorter. And then of course this affects the inside of my shape, but I'm going to show you what I would do for that also. So this one is a little longer, a lot longer than I would like it to be. Let me do my direct select, grab some anchor points, and then move just those anchor points. So I'm just making this a little bit shorter. So my little cheating way of doing this right now is to come and just create some black on the outside of this to just make up for the issue that I just created. Let me come out of this, click out of it, and then create my shape. So I'm just creating a little freestyle shape with the polygon tool. I'm not here to teach you exactly how to do that. And now I can take everything here. I don't have to merge it because I'm just pulling it into Photoshop. So if you want to be smart, just hit Control S. Otherwise, if I was to close down here, it would ask me if I wanted to save, and it would update that. So see how my drips are smaller now, and I don't have to take up a whole page just to showcase the drips. Alright, so we want the drips to have this blue color. So we go to our effects. We're going to do a color overlay. And instead of white, we want it to be this blue. And if you want to brighten it up a little bit, that's on you. Now we also have the option, if we wanted to soften this up a little bit, is to add an outer glow. Of course, that's the last glow that we used. Let's just do the traditional diagonal contour, and let's use the same exact color. For our color overlay, I'm going to copy this hex code here. The hex code is telling us what color that is. Say OK, and then for my outer glow, I'm going to change it to that exact hex code. We're on normal. I'm going to change the opacity to 100%, and as you can see, I do get different shape. So if I wanted it to look like a cloudier shape, now I have that option. But really and truly, I just didn't want it to look so vectored. Because we're doing this sublimation, we have the opportunity to make it look a little bit more hand painted and airbrushed. So I'm going to take advantage of that. Now I could also, instead of doing it the exact same color, I can come and make this color a little bit darker, and it gives it a little dimension. But I'm going to leave it the same color because I'd rather do that with my drop shadow and not with the darker color. So say OK. Now I can drag this below all my text, but above my source image. And it is clipped to the source image. Oh, because I drag it underneath the vibrance layer. Let's undo that. I don't want to clip it to the art, and I don't want it to go between my vibrance layer. So here we go. And then we can play with doing things like on the misdemeanor. We can add a drop shadow now. And that drop shadow, we can let the opacity up so that it's just barely there. We can change the size and spread to blur it out a little bit. I can bevel and emboss it. That way it makes it look like it has a little bit more dimension to it. I can also take and add a new stroke and make that stroke, let's say I'm going to make it black, although I'm not going to leave it black. And I just want this text to pop just a little bit more. I can create a darker color for the stroke, and then I can bring the opacity down just so that it gives it a little bit of punch. And then if we wanted this to look like it was on a brick background, we could do another quick search. Do concrete wall background. And let's go to images. And we're going to make sure that we select our tools, size, go for a large. And you might find some things that are 123 RF, those are stock images. We're just looking for something quick that we can put as our background. Right click, save image as, that's 3000 by 2000 pixels, so that should view and print beautifully. Hit enter, and what I do when I am saving things from online, I drag it right from the bottom of this window and drop it on my artboard. And I'm going to take this background and drag it to the very, very back. And I believe that we are pretty much done with our source image now. If you want to add the little sprays here, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So let's do a new layer. And let's grab our brush. And if you don't have different brushes, let's just use we can use a soft round brush, but we're going to make it a little bit harder. We don't want it to be completely soft edge. Let's right click, let's change the size down. And this is going to create a sphere. Let me see if I guess in Photoshop the general brushes will be what you all have. So we'll do it with the general brush and see. You can also do a shape. I just think, yeah, let's do a shape. So you have your ellipse tool here. It looks like a circle. And then this way you can create it to be oblong. You have a single shape here. Of course, it's white right now, but you can take that ellipse, you can do a color overlay. Let's make it that blue, and then we can give it an inner glow and bring that choke and the size down. And we can choose a darker blue, or we can choose to just bring this opacity down a little bit so that it uses the black. There we go. Now you can Control T, you can rotate it, you can hold down your Shift key so you can distort this however you like. And let me Control minus, zoom out a little bit, and then I can place these on top of my text here. And for my final project, I know I'm not going with the spots look. I know that we're particularly doing stars. So you can imagine that if you wanted to continue doing this, you can hold down your Alt key over that one shape, drag it, and it'll create a duplicate of it. Control T, and let's change that size of the shape. You can Control T again if you want to rotate it a little bit, make it different orientation, that sort of thing. You can continue to do that until you get all of your desired spots that you want. So you will have all of these eclipses, and I would choose to hold down Control, select all of them, group it, and then I would just label that one, maybe my spots, as that whole group. So if I wanted to take them off, I would take them all off together, and I don't have a whole bunch of individual spots taking up my space here. So same thing I'm going to do with my Missy layers. I'm going to group, and I'm going to say Missy group. I'll label this as my paint spray background. Reduce that. That's my original image. I definitely want to keep that as inspiration, but I want to turn it off now. So now we get a good idea of the totality of the project, and then this link. I was just saving that link if anybody wanted to know how to get this vector image. Now if I don't hold down the Shift key, it's going to stretch this image proportionally. Actually just turn it. And I got my paint spray background, my Missy group, and where is, there we go. Let's bring that to the middle. And now you might want to play with your blending modes. So for instance, right now everything's on normal by default. Maybe you're going to go through and look at what the different blend modes do. Oh, you have this color overlay on it. Now this is where it matters what color your smart object is. Let's see. Go darken. Now let's turn the opacity all the way up. And what I'm doing is just changing my blend modes here. Looks like hard light did best, but I want it to be more opaque. So I'm just going to change it to normal and pull down the opacity just a tad bit. And then I'll do another trick to add the background layer to the foreground and use those levels to actually create my texture, because I really want these colors to pop off this background. So for this Missy layer, we can change our fill, our opacity, just a little bit. As a matter of fact, I'm going to keep it full scale and drag my texture, a copy of it, to the front. There we go. Let's see. Multiply. I think soft light kind of does what I wanted to do too. Let's go back to soft light. And then what I can do is take this opacity down just a little bit. And I'm pretty happy with that as a final product. I see my texture through it. Now, if I were making this for a shirt and I really wanted to have this background, another thing I would do is do a layer, adjustment layer. I'm going to make this texture black and white, and I forgot to create a clipping mask, so it only does it to that layer. Do the same thing down here. Click on the image, layer, new adjustment layer, black and white. Use the previous layer to create a clipping mask, say OK. And then I can change the opacity of this too. So I just didn't like it looking so brown. I wanted to have more gray tone. And so I'm just letting that black and white take over just a little bit more. And if I were making this for a shirt, I would probably do a photo mask, just because I cannot stand personally to see a square on somebody's shirt. So I do different things. Let me see if I can find. This is one of my templates here that I use to teach people how to do quick designs on demand, like at the flea market or at an event. And it has a layer for text, images, and that sort of thing. All right. So all I'm going to grab from this one is one of my photo masks. And I'll show you how this layer works. So there's a photo mask. And if you dragged your photo in right now, let's say I drag this photo of this beautiful little girl that Amy Justice took this photo. She's a fantabulous photographer in Northwest Florida. I would drag this photo so that it clipped inside of my layer mask. And then I have different masks that I can choose based on how much of the image I want to show. So I'm just going to take this mask right now, drag it over to my Missy file, put it just about where I want it. I'm going to drag this mask all the way to the bottom, and then I'm going to right click on the text part of my layer and create a clipping mask. It clips it down to this paint mask that I just created. And that's how I would get away with doing this on a t-shirt without having a square. So that would be beginning to end how I would do this. And still have your image on top. With the soft light mode, it's not affecting your background here. But if it was, what I would do is I would create an alternate version of this mask, drag it right below our top layer here. I would select 0% for the fill because I don't want it filled in, but I do want to make sure that this object is clipped to this mask. And that way, if the soft light was adding any little particles to this outside area, something that you might not see now, but you'll see when you print it and press it on a white t-shirt, I just want to avoid that. So what I'm also going to do is link the top and the bottom mask. I'm going to hit the control key so that I'm not selecting everything in between. I'm only selecting mask number 1 and mask number 2, and I'm going to link them with this chain here. That means that if I move one, the other one moves too. And from here, let me take my misdemeanor and bring it down just a little bit because I don't want it hanging off of my image there. Got my paint spray background. I can move it a little bit. And if I wanted to add a little dimension to this now, I could do a little bit of a drop shadow. Reduce that opacity, and instead of normal, I can make this multiply. And that would be just to make it stand off just a little bit. And that would be all, folks. So let me know if you have any questions or you are wanting the template. I also meant to show you all the Fire font template because some people was asking about that too with the 850 that was on Flames. Let me see if I can open that one. That is actually a font that I have developed. It's meant to look like the Thrasher font, but it is not exactly the same as the Thrasher font. It does have flames on top of it. Pretty similar style, but it is editable, and I can show you that. And that would be the flame font. So if you're interested in that font, I will put it up on the website and link it as well. Save that. And you can also do it in the traditional Thrasher style where it has the yellow on the inside and then I think the red and black outlines. So that would be it for today. I'm going to go back to my Untitled document that I should have been saving the whole time. And let me save it as Missy Elliot Graffiti. And that's all, folks. Let me know if you need anything else or you have any questions. I will be checking in. Thank you, guys.